Good evening, dear listeners. I am Creed, your host and keeper of the Sanctum. With years spent unraveling the shadows of the human mind, I invite you to embark on a journey of faith, terror, and the boundaries of the psyche. In the small town of Failington, people are known for their strong faith and tight-knit community. But places of profound faith often harbor the darkest of fears. Holly, a young woman in her late 20s, had recently moved to Failington. She had straight raven black hair that cascaded down her back, pale blue eyes that shimmered with an enigmatic sadness, and a distinctive birthmark on her left cheek, shaped like a crescent moon. Despite her charm, Holly felt like an outsider, a sentiment that would soon be magnified. The town was built around a vast, pristine lake named Luna Lake. Its waters were deep blue, mirroring the sky, and the air around it always had a chilly bite, even in the warmest of summers. Luna Lake had a myth, one that all of Failington knew. On nights when the moon was nowhere in sight, one might see an ethereal glow emerging from its depths. One evening, Holly decided to visit the lake. She was drawn to its myths and thought that capturing some pictures for her blog might help her feel more connected to the town. As she reached the lake, she felt the temperature drop. It was one of those moonless nights. With her camera poised, she heard soft, melancholic whispers. They weren't words but emotions: despair, longing, and loss. Following the sound, she found herself at an old, dilapidated chapel by the lake. Holly had heard about this chapel. It was a relic from a century ago, stained with stories of lost lovers. But tonight, it felt different. The whispers became intense, echoing her own feelings of loneliness. Compelled by an unseen force, she pushed the wooden doors, their paint chipped and faded with age. Inside, she was greeted by utter darkness. Her flashlight revealed rows of old wooden pews covered in dust. In the distance, an altar draped in white, but in the center stood a tall, slender figure, a statue of a woman draped in robes, her face covered in a veil. As Holly approached, she felt her heart race. The atmosphere grew oppressive. The air was thick with the weight of countless sorrows, each more heart-wrenching than the last. Her birthmark, the crescent moon on her cheek, began to burn, intensifying with every step she took towards the statue. Suddenly, the statue's veil moved, as if caressed by an invisible breeze. Beneath it were no facial features, just an empty void. A void that seemed to pull Holly in, beckoning her to share all her pain, all her loneliness. Every memory, every tear, every heartbreak, all began pouring out, drowning her. She felt herself being consumed, her identity merging with the countless souls trapped within the chapel. She wanted to scream, to run, but she was paralyzed. The only thing that was clear to her was the abyss within the statue's face. It threatened to swallow her whole, her existence reduced to just another whisper in the chapel. But then, a voice broke through, clearer and more potent than the whispers. It was her mother's voice, reciting a prayer she'd taught Holly as a child. It was a simple prayer of protection, faith, and hope. Holly clung to that voice, that memory, with all her might. It became her anchor. Using every ounce of her strength and faith, she tore herself from the pull of the void, her voice joining her mother's in the prayer. The chapel around her began to shake, the oppressive atmosphere dissipating. The statue's veil fluttered, its void now powerless against Holly's faith. With one final push of will, Holly found herself outside the chapel, the doors firmly shut behind her. The weight lifted, she realized she confronted not just the town's fears but her own loneliness and despair. Gasping for breath, Holly staggered away from the chapel, the chilly air of Luna Lake embracing her. The waters of the lake, which previously seemed calm and serene, now appeared disturbed, ripples forming as if resonating with Holly's tumultuous emotions. As Holly walked further from the chapel, she felt the crescent birthmark on her cheek cooling down. But her mind was still aflame with questions. Why was she drawn to the chapel? And what was that void? She remembered Miss Iris, an elderly lady she'd met at Failington's community gatherings. With silver hair, lines of age etched deep into her skin, and eyes that held centuries of wisdom, Miss Iris was known as the unofficial historian of Failington. Holly felt a strong urge to seek her out and understand the chapel's history better. Reaching Miss Iris's home, a quaint cottage with walls draped in ivy and windows framed with white lace curtains, Holly hesitated for a moment before knocking. The door creaked open to reveal Miss Iris, her eyes widening in recognition and concern. Before Holly could utter a word, Miss Iris whispered, "The chapel. You've been there on a moonless night." Holly nodded, her voice shaky. "I felt something there, something that tried to pull me in. And there was this statue." Miss Iris sighed deeply, her hands trembling slightly. "Sit, my dear," she motioned. "You've encountered the echoes of desolation." They sat in the living room, walls adorned with old pictures and the scent of aged wood enveloping them. With a deep breath, Miss Iris began the tale. Years ago, Failington was struck by a tragedy. A young woman, Lysandra, who was to be wed, lost her fiancé in a tragic accident just days before the wedding. Heartbroken and lost, she would visit the chapel by Luna Lake every night, her prayers filled with anguish. Her sorrow was so profound that it is said her cries would reach the heavens. On one fateful moonless night, Lysandra went to the chapel and was never seen again. The chapel has since been a vessel for the town's collective despair. And the statue? It was sculpted in Lysandra's memory but became a vessel for her endless sorrow, an abyss of desolation that lures in lost souls. Holly's birthmark throbbed as Miss Iris spoke. Why did I feel such a strong connection? Why did it draw me in? Miss Iris looked at Holly intently. Your birthmark. It's a mark of the crescent moon. It's said Lysandra had the same mark. It signifies a deep connection with the ethereal, making you more susceptible to the echoes of the past. But remember, it's also a mark of strength. It's not just a curse, it's a blessing. Holly took a moment to absorb this. She realized that her feelings of isolation, combined with the mark's power, made her vulnerable to the chapel's pull. But it also gave her the strength to resist it, to confront and overcome her own despair. Filled with a newfound determination, Holly decided to help free the chapel from its haunting past, to transform it into a beacon of hope. With Miss Iris's guidance, Holly learned rituals and prayers to cleanse the chapel, to make peace with Lysandra's spirit, and to prevent future souls from being ensnared. Days turned into nights as Holly, with Miss Iris by her side, prepared for the ritual. They gathered sacred herbs known for their purifying properties, candles to represent the light against darkness, and relics that symbolized hope and faith. Choosing another moonless night, Holly and Miss Iris stood outside the chapel. Holly felt the same pull, but this time she was prepared. The crescent mark on her cheek shimmered, reflecting her determination. As they entered, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The whispers rose, louder than before, a cacophony of despair. But Holly remained unfazed. With Miss Iris chanting ancient prayers, Holly began placing the candles in a circle around the statue, each flame flickering to life, fighting the oppressive darkness. With the circle complete, Holly took her position in the center, facing the statue. The veil fluttered, revealing the abyss. Holly met its gaze, her own eyes reflecting the light of the candles. She began her own chant, her voice steady and powerful, echoes of despair. I acknowledge your pain. But this place shall no longer be your chain. With faith as my shield, hope as my sword, I free you and this town from this accord. The ground trembled, the whispers becoming a deafening scream. But Holly's voice rose above, unwavering. The candles blazed brighter, and slowly, the abyss began to shrink, the void receding before the combined might of hope and faith. With a final, resonant note, Holly concluded her chant. Silence enveloped the chapel, broken only by the soft crackle of the candles. The veil over the statue settled, revealing not a void, but the serene face of Lysandra, a smile touching her lips. Tears streamed down Holly's face as she felt a likeness, a peace that she hadn't felt in a long time. Ms. Iris approached her, a proud smile on her face. "You did it, dear. The chapel is free, and so are you." In the days that followed, the chapel by Luna Lake became a symbol of hope for Failington. Holly, no longer the outsider, became its guardian. The stories of the chapel's haunting transformed into tales of its liberation, of the strength of faith against the deepest despair. And every moonless night, if one were to visit the lake, they might see an ethereal glow, not of sorrow, but of peace and hope, a testament to Holly's journey and the town's newfound strength.